Welcome to our video on building and securing serverless apps using AWS Amplify. This is part one in a three-part series. So we've been exploring AWS serverless capabilities for some time now, and we're recently using Amplify to drive some of our latest applications. So we wanted to share our experiences using this tool. I'm Bobby Pantel, and I'll be joined by my colleague Sudhindra Shetty. So a little bit about us. I've been developing applications for over 20 years using different platforms and languages from ASP.NET, C# to Java to Python. Recently, I've become interested in cloud-native serverless apps and how they can make the development process quicker and deployment more automated. I'm also an AWS Certified Developer Associate. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Sudhindra Shetty. We've worked together on projects now for the last few years, and we're always anxious to dig into something new, try new tools and techniques, especially when it comes to cloud technologies. So, Sudhindra?
Thanks, Bobby. Hi, I'm Sudhindra Shetty, and I've been building software applications for over 12 years now. I'm mostly focused on .NET using Angular framework, but recently I've been building automated security monitoring tools using Python and AWS services like Lambda. I just earned my AWS Certified Security Specialty certification, and I have a strong interest in building secure applications. This also led me down the Certified Ethical Hacker path, where I earned my CEH Master certification. Who is this for? This is for anybody who is interested in developing code, mostly coding or writing commands. It'll also help like developers, solution architects, and anybody interested in building hands-on solutions using AWS services. Like anybody who is wearing a security hat in their organization, this will also help them understand better.
All right, so just to describe what we're trying to accomplish here, we're going to do this in a three-part series of videos. The first part, which is this presentation, is just setting up Amplify, the CLI, and the result will be hosting a front-end only app in the AWS cloud. The next video, we're going to be adding authentication and storage to the app. And then in the third video, we're going to be adding the middle layer API and functions, and which would finally give us an end-to-end full stack serverless app hosted in AWS. A little bit about our app. It's just a simple campaign management app built in Angular. We're expecting you to have a front-end app ready in React or Vue or whatever framework you prefer. And we're going to make our code available on GitHub as we progress through each of these series. So, and then a little bit about Amplify. Amplify is a set of tools and services meant to speed up development of full-stack serverless apps in the AWS cloud. It gives you a head start towards building cloud-native apps with DevOps automation. Now, Amplify promises to make it easier to develop serverless apps, so we're anxious to see if it accomplishes that goal and if there are any gotchas. We'll be describing our experience with it, including the side effects, benefits, and any limitations of the tool. Here's the target architecture that we're going to be driving towards in the series of videos. You can see at the top that AWS Amplify, it really breaks down aspects of your application into several. There are 5 aspects that we'll be focusing on: hosting, API, auth, functions, and storage. The Amplify command line interface supports many other aspects of your application, but we'll be focusing on these. And you can see where each of these corresponds to. So the hosting is just going to be hosting a front-end app. There's no other back-end resources right now. And then in subsequent videos, we'll be adding an API layer, which is secured by Cognito and IAM. And then there will be several functions that we'll be adding to support our application that will be reading and writing to a DynamoDB. So all of this is done through the Amplify CLI, combination of the command line interface and the console. So some of the work will be done in the AWS console. So we'll be referring to this architecture in each of the videos, but for now, we'll be focusing on the first part.
All right, so let's get on to the code where you will be focused on how to use Amplify, CLI, and console and we will be focusing in this video on how to add hosting using CLI and console, and how to set up your automated deployments. So let's do that, and we will be using Angular as a preferred framework in this video, but you are free to use anything that you like. Just want to show you all the components that we're going to work with today. The Amplify console is the app in AWS, which is where we're going to publish our app to manage our front end and the back end environments. And we're going to publish this in USH 2. This is the GitHub repository where we're going to pull the source code. This is the baseline source code that we're going to use to pull from, and we're going to add our Amplify front end and the back end resources as we move along. And this is the front end app, which is basically running in my local, and it's going to be managing campaigns. You can add a campaign, you can delete a campaign, you can edit a campaign, or you can update a campaign. So I just want to show you how it's working right now. So here, just to show you, and you can delete this. It's a very simple app, but we're going to use this as an example when you're working with the Amplify. So let me go back to Visual Studio Code. So I've already pulled the source code from Git here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize my Amplify environment locally before we provision any resources in the cloud. And the command to do that is amplify init. This is basically going to create an app in the Amplify console. And before that, it's going to ask me for a name. So I'm going to give it a name for that called campaign app. And it's going to pick the default configuration by looking at the code. It understands it's an Angular code. We're using the default editor as Visual Studio Code. And these are some of the like commands that you need to run when you deploy or run an Angular app. So I'm going to go with the default configuration. So yes. And this is also going to create your AWS CloudFormation configuration file, where it basically keeps track of all the templates that you're going to create locally, and I'm going to get deployed into the AWS account using the stack. So to do that, you need to authenticate yourself to your AWS account, and I'm going to use AWS access keys because it's much more easy to manage as well as maintain. You can always make those access keys inactive or delete them and recreate new ones if you think that it has been exposed outside. So I'm going to use that, and I have already downloaded it in my local from the AWS IAM user. I'm going to just copy paste those access keys so I can authenticate and authorize myself. And I'm successfully authenticated now. So I'm going to pick USH 2 as I discussed before to publish this app. So you can see here it's created a Amplify console app with this ID, and it's initializing all the resources that it needs to be deployed in the cloud. So right now everything is on my local. So once the initialization is complete, you can see there is an Amplify folder that will be created in the solution with all the necessary files that it needs. And this is the team.info.json. This is where you can see the environment configuration, and this is the AWS CloudFormation the configuration. So this is the stack ID for that particular config, and this is the app ID. So let me go and check the status locally. So no backend resources were created so far. So you should not see anything under the category, and you can see the current environment as dev, which is what we are seeing here right now. And you can always add like different environments, like staging, production environments, if you want to deploy it to different accounts. Oh, sorry, not different
Sudhindra?
accounts. Yeah.
Just a quick note. I remember when we had done this before, we had noticed that some of these roles, on-auth role and auth role, are generated at the top. You can see them there. What we discovered was that those aren't used for hosting, but they will be used for backend. So what Amplify does is, even if you're not adding any backend resources, it just creates them in preparation for any backend resources. So those roles are created now, but aren't used until later.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
All right. So let's start with our first category, which is adding a host or adding a hosting site for our funded environment. So the command for that is amplify add hosting, and it's gonna ask you some questions or take you through some steps. So it gives you two options, either host with Amplify console, or you can use Amazon CloudFront and S3. I'll go with the first one because it's easy to manage everything under the console for rapid development, and also gives you the feature of continuous deployment as well. So, but you can always go with Amazon CloudFront and S3 too if you think that you want to have like more control on how you want to like manage your site, as well as how you want to manage your CI/CD pipelines as well. So I'm just gonna stick with the first option here. So it's gonna ask me some more options or some more questions here. I think one of the options will be the manual deployment or continuous deployment. As I said, I'll be sticking with the continuous deployment because we already have a repo in place, and we want to deploy like continuously as we push changes to our repository. So pick the continuous deployment, and it's going to take me to the Amplify console here. You can see here the app was already created from our previous steps, and there was no backend resources created yet. The front end is what we are trying to add here. So I'm gonna pick the GitHub as the repository to connect to, and you can see here the GitHub authorization successful. So behind so as a prerequisite, like we already gave access to our Amplify console app to basically pull the changes from the repo. So that's why you can see the GitHub authorization was successful. So as a prerequisite, you have to like configure your GitHub to make sure that the Amplify console app has the necessary permissions to make changes. So you can see here, this is the repo that we are gonna pull, we are gonna connect to, so that anytime any changes gets detected in the repo, it will automatically start doing the continuous integration and continuous deployment to our environments. And this is the branch. We just have one branch, so just gonna go with that one. You can always have the different branches. As you can see here, this is the environment that we are going to use to continuously deploy to our backend. I'm going to pick that one, and you can always uncheck this if you don't want to have the continuous integration deployment running when you make changes. But I'm going to keep it enabled so that we can make use of that feature to deploy it continuously. And this is the app that we're running. And this is a service role that was already created before. We have created a service role with the least privileges, so that the Amplify console has necessary permissions to create those resources in the backend. So we need to make sure that we don't give like a lot of permissions to this role if it is not needed. So just keep that in mind when you are creating this service role. In addition to that, it also gives us the Amplify YAML file, which you can download locally and attach it to your solution. It's very important to have that as part of your solution. If you have a customized pre-build and post-build commands when you are building and deploying your application, so I would download and keep that handy in case you want to customize anything later. But it's not necessary when you're working with Amplify console. Select next. You don't have any advanced settings. This is just a review of what we did before. This is the branch, the environment that we are working with. Let me go and deploy this app. As you can see, it hasn't been deployed yet. The build is queued, and right now it has started provisioning all the resources for the front end hosting site, and is going to deploy that app. And this is the URL for that site. And once your deployment is completed, you will start seeing your front end environment hosted here. Okay, so it looks like a build was completed and deployed successfully, and you can verify that using this URL. In addition to that, you can also verify in your Visual Studio Code editor. It shows that the Amplify hosting URL is here as well. And another way is to do with Amplify status, which will also give you a confirmation of what categories were added and what environment was created for the hosting as well. So you can see here the category hosting was added, and it's going to give you a summary of the hosting site as well. Let's give it a second. Right there, right? So it's kind of a good summary of what you've done so far. So I'm going to check in all these changes so that you can see the build getting triggered. Push it to the Git repository, and the moment I do that, it should automatically trigger a build in the console right here. You can see here. This is the commit that I did in my Git repository. So, and also in addition to that, you can add the Amplify file. Amplify.yaml file, so that if you have any, actually this is not the right place.
So the proper location, is that the root of your front end app? Okay.
Yeah, it's the root of the front end app. Anytime you wanted to customize your pre-build and post-build commands, you can do that using this file, and the Amplify console should automatically pick those changes from this file. So that's it. That's it for the Amplify hosting. Yeah.
Okay. That's great, Sudhindra. I think so. The next steps are to add other categories that Amplify supports, such as authorization, the API, function, and storage. So the next set of videos will tackle those categories, and eventually we'll have a end-to-end serverless app generated by Amplify. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some key takeaways. Now, the first thing is Amplify requires a service role to manage resource creation. So be sure to use the principle of least privileges to limit access to only what you need. This service role can be created prior to setting up your Amplify app or during the initial setup, but just be sure to understand what resources that role has access to. The second is to create your IAM access keys first. You'll need these to provision the initial resources in AWS using the Amplify CLI. Third thing is to customize build commands. You can use the amplify.yaml file located in the Amplify console. It's under build settings. Now we recommend downloading this YAML file and storing it with your solution under the root folder. That way you can customize it as you progress through the next steps of the deployment processes. And finally, just get familiar with the Amplify CLI commands. We touched upon a few of these today, but it's very powerful, and there are many resources that you can manage with the Amplify CLI. And the output of those commands are CloudFormation templates. So that's a very key part of infrastructure as code within AWS. So understanding the CLI commands and CloudFormation templates will help with, especially in the next set of videos. So what's coming up next? On the next video, we're going to be adding authentication, including a login page. This will use the Cognito and IAM AWS services. And we're also going to be adding storage for our campaign data using DynamoDB. So I hope to see you there.